Aduro had a nice press release this morning, and I made a video about it, how Aduro added a fifth multi-billion-dollar company into its customer engagement program. And I'm sitting down with Yazan to get his thoughts about it. So Yazan, thanks for joining me. What do you think about the press release this morning?
Thank you for having me. And let me start off with the usual that both of us have to say. We are long the stock and we are biased, and all of this is our own opinions. So with that said, I mean, I don't know, like when you see that the company, I think that over the course of the period that you've covered Aduro, let's say that the market cap have doubled, to be fair. So, or the share price have. So we're talking about from July 2022 till today. And what has happened during that time? What has happened in the broader market is NASDAQ has seen all-time highs because of the AI craze. We've seen a significant amount of flows come back, mainly towards larger cap and NASDAQ companies and the Mega 7, with the exception of Tesla. So what's funny is that till now, and I had this conversation with a lot of people, till now, I think small caps and obviously de facto micro caps are still not there yet. Now, obviously being on a CSE and QX makes it even more difficult because the amount of liquidity that some of these names have, there's no like leaps and bounds relative to QX or OTC in general. So that's let's start with that precursor, just for people to kind of put context. Despite at the time that you introduced this company, they didn't have Shell, they did not have all these validations. They didn't have Eric Appelman. They didn't have the progress that they had on the commissioning of R2. They didn't have any paying client at the time. They didn't have now 5 multi-billion-dollar companies on one vertical, and now they have all that, and the market's still saying, interested but not committed, essentially.
No revenues, pre-revenue company.
Pre-revenue company. So I get it. People are gonna be cynical and as what typically happens with these, based on what I've seen in history, is people keep saying no till one day, something happens and the share price will react properly, and then there won't be enough shares to get acquired. And in the case of Aduro, we keep reminding people that insiders own 44% of the company or 42%. They keep buying. They are very smart about how they've raised their money. And as we can see, they have continued, they haven't sold shares as insiders. So it's quite fascinating to see this, type of company on the OTC. Now, going back to the main question, today's news. I think today's news is another fantastic news. And why do I say fantastic? Because as you touched on this morning, you said this is a significant segment that is within the plastic vertical. And why, if we recall back, what was the main thing that Ofer and Eric were talking about when it comes to Aduro's technology? The ability of Aduro to work on contaminated plastic. So contaminated with plastic, as well as styrofoam, as well as several types of plastic waste, not only one. is a big problem, especially in the food packaging business. Now, you did mention this morning the size of the market. The sheer size of the market is for food packaging, which is, again, remind people, this is a sub-segment of one of the verticals. Today, or sorry, in 2022, the research says $363 billion and expected to grow to, as you said, $500 billion by 2030. So massive. Now, we need to remind people again that only 9% of plastic waste gets recycled, which means that 91 doesn't. Why? Because the bulk of that plastic waste that we have, is either contaminated, or it's a mixed waste plastic, or it's not the cream of the crop. Everyone is fighting for that best cream of the crop, and Aduro doesn't have to. So, and the valuation came in today. This food packaging company, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. They have 15 locations. This is something I loved, because again, people might forget, but Aduro, the selling feature is, after running the testing and hopefully next is collaboration. Why are these people doing this? Because one, they have this producer requirement where they have this extended producer responsibility. That means that they are responsible to recycle at least 25% of their plastic waste. Now, in this particular case, this manufacturer is saying we want to go to 90%. They can't do it with any of the other 70 technologies. So they have to do it with someone else, which is Aduro. So hence why it's significant. Now, them having 15 locations.
Now, you mean 15 countries?
15 countries, yeah. Them having that presence in 15 countries is exactly what Aduro is meant to be, because you're building or you're licensing the technology to where the plastic waste is manufactured. That is why it has such a significant value, being at the producer site. And I'm going to add one more thing that a lot of people might not know. The food packaging industry is not a very high margin business, but they are required to recycle. So let me give you a solution that can help you achieve your recycling targets and in a profitable manner. And that's what we talk about. Now, this goes back to the same point of why we've highlighted last 2-3 weeks ago, why is the 95% yield significant? I know it's a smaller sample, 240 batches, but 240 runs. But to achieve 90% more or more of yield, it just tells you how more efficient it is relative to anything that's out there. This is why Aduro keeps going out there and say, even when you were speaking to Eric was saying, there's nothing similar to this technology as of now. Now, obviously, there might be new incomers, but that's not a problem, because they have so much room that they should eat a significant bite of a market, especially now, the subset of a market that they're in. So I'll take a pause, hear what your thoughts are, and we'll carry on from there.
No, I mean, for me, it was, huge news, because this is a new industry. I mean, within plastic, it's a new industry. So far, we've been hearing about, Shell. Shell is an oil company within, testing the technology within plastic, but food packaging, we haven't heard that. We didn't have that as a client testing this technology. But I wanted to take your take on, because I hear this over and over. Again, people coming up with excuses why, they don't want to look at Aduro. Like a pre-revenue company, or the company doesn't have any value unless it has EBITDA, right? Bottom line. So I was wondering how you look at this. Why are you interested in a company like this, even though it doesn't have significant revenues and it doesn't have EBITDA today?
I think that narrative is very short-sighted, because the narrative of saying I want it to be EBITDA and I want it to be free cash flow positive and I want it to be already everything of it resolved and scaled and so on, come to me when it's like a few $1 billion and we'll talk. Okay. There is a reason why you're taking on this risk. We are taking on this risk because we are looking at the landscape of 70 other technologies, including few private and public, that are in the billion US dollar plus market cap, and they only recycle one, or they only can recycle part of the problem, but yet the market wants to give them that valuation, and they're pre-revenue. None of these companies, Pure Cycle, 1.5 billion, Mira, haven't produced revenue, although they're private, so they don't have to tell us what they're doing. But again, they're a central operation. So to answer your question, why do I care about it? If you find the best mousetrap or a better mousetrap, that the valuation of it is significantly lower than anything out there, okay? And it keeps getting better. Every time it gets more clients, it gets more validation. And as time passes, like with today, now we have 5 paying clients. So this myopic view and this like very short, like as you call it, 3 inches in front of your eyes, they were pre-revenue. They're starting to get revenue. Now, the revenue is not going to be to the tune where, it's going to be cash flow positive yet. But this is like a kind of once the floodgates open, so long as what they're telling us is true, the floodgates open up. There's no end to it. And this is why, we like it. The other reason why we like it is, and this is something that I think you have to remember, every new client for Aduro is a significant increase in valuation for both to Aduro as well as to us shareholders. Why? Because it means additional revenue. It means additional or further validation for us. It means that every partner now actually has an incentive to further the technology, improve the technology enough to take it to that commercial stage. Engineering, all the bells and whistles. They're going to try to help Aduro as much as Aduro needs help. Why? Because it's for their own best benefit. They're not doing it out of good faith. They're doing it because this solution is better than everything else out there. So we want to support the solution. And it might get us to produce that plastic waste or recycle that plastic waste in a profitable manner. So, being selfish as any other company, they would want to further this technology. The other thing that I really like about this is it does create, so now, 5, 6 companies working with Aduro. What will happen and what happens now is you're almost gonna be, as an Aduro, if I'm wearing their hat for a second, and I'm not. I'm just saying, if you're on their end, with all the other technologies kind of hooked to 1 or 2 players, you're not hooked to anyone. You're not married to any of these companies. You're you have 5, 6 partners, 5 of which are multi-billion-dollar companies. You have so much room to negotiate, so much room to kind of make each one of these competitors compete further to work with you, help you further out your technology, learn more from each of these companies to get to that, a finish line, which is commercial or licensing or eventually being bought out.
Now, right now we are trading, or Aduro is trading on Canadian Stock Exchange, which it has like no pulse compared to, NASDAQ. Do you see Aduro down the line, graduating and moving to NASDAQ? Is it required for the stock to actually move?
I'm gonna say it's in 2 ways. It's not a requirement. It's gonna make life, the amount of people that reach out to me, and I know that Penny receives the same, and so do you. The amount of people that reach out to me and say, this is not investable for us. Why? Because we can't buy it through unless we have this type of broker, that type of broker. It's hard to buy it. So you being able to kind of acquire shares on OTC, whatever your broker is kind of unique. It doesn't have the same, and also the amount of diligence that we're doing here is going to be different than once it's on NASDAQ eventually, whether it makes it in a year, 2 years, or it gets taken out. I keep saying, or it gets taken out because it's all these are possibilities. So we have to look at it. Do I think that lifting to NASDAQ is going to significantly improve the liquidity? I believe so. But I think that, as Mina and Ofer said in their webinar, they need to find the right time, and they need to find the right partners in doing that. Because the last thing you want to do is migrate to a bigger exchange and not have a bigger brother that can take you around to the right funds, to the right locations, and so on. But one thing that we did talk about, I think, yesterday, we were talking about PureCycle, and I had looked at the owners of PureCycle. So PureCycle is owned by Vanguard, it's owned by several funds, but one of the funds that own them is a clean tech fund. And what had happened is, as inflows start coming to that ETF, they have to invest in the components. So they had to put money into PureCycle. So the same would happen. That's the benefit of migrating to a bigger exchange and having that, ETF coverage and the like. But I'm of the view that we are gonna get our moment. The question is when. And as far as I'm concerned, I would say that, if it takes 6 months or it takes a year and a half, we should be fine with it, because I think we're beyond discovery stage. We are in a stage where we have a lot of doubters. And one of the people I was talking to actually mentioned something that I didn't think about. It's like, you actually want doubters in a company. And I said, why? And he's like, well, you want people to, when the stock starts going to $3, $4, $5, $6, you want people to turn from doubters to believers. Those are the ones that are going to carry the valuation higher. So it's okay. I don't see that it's a problem that people doubt the technology or doubt the company or the like. It's going to come to a head, but let them keep executing, and we'll carry on.
As it comes to the execution, you see, you're right when you said, when I started talking about this company I don't know, almost 2 years ago. They didn't have Shell. They didn't have 5 multi-billion. They had no clients. They had no clients testing the technology because it was all in a batch system. They didn't have R2 build on nothing. It was just a concept, a validated concept, but they didn't have R2. And since then, I mean, the company delivered and over delivered. They just keep delivering. And recently, I've seen some writings or some comments from shareholders complaining about the company's IR efforts. And at first I was just shaking my head, but I was wondering if you could comment on this.
Look, I think that there's two sides to this. There's a side of, obviously not everything that the company is going to try on investor relations is going to work. This is like the way that I look at it. Is it frivolous? Is it a lot of spend that they're doing? No. I mean, and I'll explain why. Because each of the investor relations programs that they currently have, I know that some people say there's 6 and there's whatever. What we know, there are 4 live investor relations or marketing initiatives. There is the engagement with airheads, which is tailored towards setting up roadshows. So this is putting them in front of brokers, investors, advisors, the like, and that's mainly tailored to the US. So that's number one. I don't look at that as this is the old school IR. I like that because that creates, you need 7 touch points to get to someone to turn from an, to hear the story to actually buy it. So that's kind of the slow grind that Ofer and the team are doing. That's number one. Number 2, they have this crystal research. And you and I have talked about it. Crystal research, in my opinion, and based on conversation I had with the company, Jeff Krause does not need Aduro. The guy doesn't need the headache. He's got enough clients, and Crystal doesn't need that. The 50 grand US that they spent on it was literally for the cost of putting together a research that then they will circulate to their network. They have a massive network. They have a huge Rolodex of investors. And I think we just need to let that exercise take shape, have a research available and ready and disseminated. And once that happens, hopefully it's going to bring in a lot of more diverse investors. That leaves us with 2 more. I think some YouTubers, I think mainly, a couple of YouTubers, being Ryan, I think the one that comes to mind, independent investor. I don't think, any YouTuber in my mind that covers the story, that then puts significant amount of dollar and significant amount of his own or her own wealth in this investment, I no longer look at it as that the company's investing on IR, because now it's basically the cost of doing the production and then the cost of distributing it. Yourself, you have your own YouTube channel. There's a cost to running this, YouTube channel. It's not like for free. There's also a time element that people forget about. And I think Ryan is honestly a big, firm believer in the company. So we come to the last one, which is the out of the box, which is a renewal. And the way that I look at it is, last time they got them Jake Tran. Jake Tran got them on a lot of views. They got them, they had 2 videos with Jake Tran. And I think the average video did like 250,000 views. Ultimately, what does that mean? This is, to me, the out of the box is the real investor relations spend that they're doing. But what does it mean for us as shareholders and for Aduro? the company needs enough volume to churn through the $1 warrants. So having initiatives like that, the combination of those four, is essential in order to be able to kind of eat all the warrant overhang. So I
Now,
don't look at it as
are you saying that investors will not find this company alone, like on their own?
build it and they will come. That was like a 2007 when I entered the industry. In 2007, there was a euphoria in mining, in everything. Okay, and one of the people I met was like, we don't spend anything on investor relations because all what we need to do is we build the mine and everyone comes and buys the stock. Obviously, GFC happened and then there was no bid. So the idea of expanding your shareholder base, so long as you're telling the real story, you're telling what it is, I don't see any issues with that. I don't see it as problematic. If people have an issue with it, it's okay. They shouldn't invest in it. The one thing that I'm gonna finish with is all this noise that we're going through is just because, again, people are trying to fixate on something. You know that on the TSX and TSX, CBOE, which are bigger exchanges, they don't have to disclose of any of that except in their annual reports. So no one talks about all of these TSX companies that are spending, some of them are spending seven-figure IR budgets. No one talks about them. I know of many of them. But no one talks about them because it's not declared as investor relations and people see it and say, oh my God, Aduro is spending 100 grand with out of the box. And you're like, really? Like, can you like put it in the context of what they're getting in return of that? So that's my comment to the investor relations.
All right, cool. Any final thoughts about the press release or anything before we finish?
I think I've said it a lot of times with you and with others. I keep saying the opportunity to own, this is not a common story. I mean, the more that I come to know this story, the more that I learn about it, the more I am convinced. And obviously, human bias is there and so on. But the more I am convinced that this is very unique. This proposition does not come by often. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of propositions. But this particular setup is very, very unique. And, and that's why I'm saying that when the company, when you come across and every time the company helps you increase your conviction by seeing more milestones, so on, you feel more happy to own more, or you feel happy owning what you own. So that's what I would say. That's kind of my final thought. I know for a fact that all this, if anyone is tired from a range of trading, this is not a get rich quick stock. That said, I don't know when one day we're gonna look at this thing and it's gonna go and re-rate significantly. But if you're gonna live your day, I mean, I'm not a day trader, neither you are. So you either become a trader, and there's nothing wrong with it, or you're an investor. If you're in the investor camp, then let your investment mature. Let see the fruits of what they're doing. Let it kind of let them work, execute. And if they don't execute, there's nothing wrong saying, you know what, I was wrong, and going back. But every few weeks they give us more reasons to believe. So I don't see any red flags so far. What do you think?
No, good words. Good words. I agree. Throughout the time that I've owned this, the investment thesis only strengthened. The value that was added to the company far surpasses what was added in terms of the market cap.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marish. Have a good one. Take care.